at least once in your life, a man needs to have a proper two-door sports car. And by that we mean two-door, rear-wheel drive, not necessarily lots of power. So with that aspect, this is why you get yourself a Miata. Not an 86, you get a Miata. And this is the current generation Miata. It's actually smaller than the previous generation. So they went back to the roots, they shrank everything, and it feels like the first generation Miata, wholly upgraded tenfold. And of course, power is up too. The first Miata, the 1.6 engine that made less than 100 horsepower. So now we have a 2-liter engine. The first ones of this Miata, 2016, 2017 ones, made around 160-ish on the crank. So that should be about 130 on the wheel, 135. So of course, more power is always better, and that's what we're doing. So we're going to be doing the whole thing. We'll be doing the intake, the exhaust, and then we're going to be tuning it. So we're starting off with the exhaust. We already took out the stock exhaust header, and this is it. This is the stock exhaust header. Let's remove this. So immediately we can see it is a, yes, it's a 421 design, but a very, very compromised 421 because the primary runner here is short. And this one here, this is kind of short here. This is also kind of short, then it gets crammed into this catalytic converter here. So what we'll be doing is we'll be doing a long 4-1 header. So from here up to here, give or take, up to where the catalytic here is. There's a bung here for the oxygen sensor. This has to go back, so that's important also. So we'll have also a provision for the primary oxygen sensor. Then there's a secondary O2 sensor at the back of the exhaust here. And this is the rest of the exhaust. This is the mid pipe. This is another, there's a secondary catalytic here. So there's 2 cats. We'll be removing this one. We'll be changing the entire mid pipe also. This is the rear muffler. One of the biggest complaints with Miata owners is that for a sports car, it doesn't produce much sound. Oh, that's because this muffler is huge. So it's a chambered muffler. What do we mean by that? You see here, you have ribs here. Each of these ribs is literally a wall in between the muffler. So this pipe goes in here. There's no physical connection between this and that. So in between the ribs here, there's a bunch of holes. There's a bunch of holes here, a bunch of holes here more, and a lot of insulating material. That's why it's quiet. So obviously some sports cars need to make some noise. We'll be going with a Tanabe muffler setup that will change it to a single tip. So he doesn't like the dual tip, he wants a single tip, but we can also do dual tip with a Borla exhaust. The type of muffler, by the way, does not matter in power, it's just sound. The secret of the exhaust when it comes to making power is actually the headers. We can actually keep the mid-pipe stock, but again, we want more sound, and anything that impedes the exhaust flow, such as catalytic converter, there's a silencer over there. So all of these things serve to reduce sound. So we're gonna get rid of all of that. If in case somebody in your family finds it too noisy, we do have an aftermarket silencer that we can put back to quiet it down. And the complaint mostly comes from your mother, your wife, or your girlfriend, in that order. Right, we're done with our full exhaust, and as you saw the result, it's a solid 10 horses gain from 2000 up to all the way to red line. So right now, after that, we're going to be remapping it. So this is what the remapping process is. We stick the laptop, we plug it into the car. It plugs in using the OBD port. Every car has that. It's that trapezoidal port. It's actually a diagnostic port, but it's also used nowadays to upload updated software. It's basically your car is a big phone. So if in your phone, you usually get, if you're an iOS user, you get an update for iOS, and then Android, you get an update. So it's the same thing with a car, but it's not, obviously it's not a phone, so there's no cellular data. The only way to update and change the firmware inside is to read what the firmware is. And then once we have that, it's a file. Normally for these things, it's about 4 MB. Then we can open that up in an editing software. So what it looks like is basically a big Excel sheet, lots of Excel sheets. So there's a bunch of numbers inside. We change those numbers, we change the values, and then we save the file again, then write it back. So that's why it's called remap or reflash, because remap, you're changing the map itself. So the bunch of numbers is called a map. Reflash because basically your ECU is a big flash drive. Alright, we're done with our Miata. So after the intake, after the exhaust, so after the remap, and this is what we got. So this red and green line was before. We didn't have the baseline, more baselines around here. So this 137 horse mark is where we are at intake exhaust. Then this orange line is after we remap. So that's almost 20 horses right there. Oh, it's a solid 10 horse, 10 horse, 10 horse, 17 horse here. So if we start from baseline, I think we were at 120 to begin with, so 150. So it's 30 horses in total with the three things: intake, exhaust, and ECU remap. Torque also increases. We went from 135 to 140 here, 132 to 140. But this here is pretty big. This is from 117 to 132. And your peak torque happens at 4,200 RPM. So this is, I believe, an ND1. I believe this is an ND1 because it's a lower horsepower. The ND2 cars have a higher base power, but that simply means that you put in the same mods, we'll pretty much get the same 20-30 horses result as a total. So again, if you want a proper sports car, you drive a Miata and then you mod it with us.